those who will be coming in like 2 minutes probably. This is Christina Andreessen, who's the Director of Ministries at OCF National, and she is here to talk with us about what OCF is thinking about doing in the Penn State campus starting in the 2026 academic year.
Yeah.
So
That's it. That's great. That's perfect.
Perfect. Okay. There we go.
Well, I want to start with a story about a young man who grew up in a family that was a kind family, not really believers though. Didn't really grow up in a family of faith. Didn't really grow up going to church. In high school, kind of started going a little to a Protestant church around town because he had a friend who invited him, but then went off to college, and that church wasn't part of that college community, and college year, freshman year is all about having fun and making friends, or this was his experience. Wanted to have, try to like make the most of the college experience. But then going into his sophomore year, he went through some difficult things that made him really start seeking and looking for answers. Fortunately for this young person, he was at Penn State, and he happened to have a class in the Willard building that semester. And he got stopped on those stairs, and he sat outside for a few months and met a friend who he met once the year before at one of those freshman year parties, and said, "Oh, you come here too? What's this guy been talking about?" And fortunately for him, the two of them agreed to come here to Holy Trinity together for the first time. And because they were greeted here with love and with warmth and with an OCF community that really helped both of them learn what it meant to be Orthodox through the cradle kids who've been there a long time, the other new excited converts, he and that girl that he came with were received in this church in 2007. I know the back row knows who I'm talking about. That's the story of my husband becoming Orthodox and my daughter's godmother. They came here together for the first time, and they became Orthodox because of the love and faithfulness and warmth of Holy Trinity and the OCF that's here. So I feel like it's important for me to start out by saying thank you to this community, because my life is an inheritance of the love of this community. My children and their faith are in part because of you all. And I'm really grateful too to now be able to help you all open up another chapter for what Holy Trinity can do for college students and what Holy Trinity can do for OCF on campus. So I've been with OCF now, I basically never left. I was an OCF leader when I was in college, and then I went to seminary, and like a year and a half into seminary, got hired by OCF to work on staff. So I've been on OCF staff for 14 years, and in that time, I've worn a lot of hats, and I've seen a lot of college students grow in their love for Christ, a lot of young people come to faith through OCF. But in the last few years, we at National OCF have felt a really strong calling to return to the local community, to put our energy and our time and our resources into the everyday discipleship of college students on campus, where they're learning to live out their faith. And not just for our Orthodox students, but for every young person. We talk about how we are the true faith, and that we have this great treasury of Christ's love and a great treasury of his kingdom. And we know that just a couple blocks over here, there's thousands of young people asking questions about who is God and who am I, and what's the point of this? Or maybe they're not yet even asking those questions, but they're really struggling and they're really suffering, and they don't know that there is a light that could be brought into their lives and could bring healing for them. So National OCF, just about 3 years ago, we've started this initiative, our Campus Missionary initiative, where we're striving to hire full-time, paid by OCF, hired by OCF, trained by OCF, managed by OCF staff for the college campuses. They work full-time as a bridge between parish life and campus life. So we started 3 years ago at Texas A&M University in a kind of part-time program, and then we've been there full-time for 2 years. And this previous fall, we've added full-time staff in Atlanta, serving, there's a lot of schools there, but the main two schools are Georgia Tech and Emory, and then as well as someone full-time at Arizona State University. And the results are really incredible. You can see a little bit of the numbers on your front page, but just talking about our pilot program at A&M. When we hired our campus missionary there, Alexandros, we were coming out of COVID. That had been a strong chapter like Penn State, but we were coming out of COVID, and we had 16 names on a list of Orthodox students. 16, that's what we had coming out of COVID. And we were like, okay, this is where you're starting, 16. And in the 3 years that he's been part of this program, that list is now 216 students. 216 students. And you can see that this school year already, 127 students have come and participated in OCF. Many of them are coming multiple times a month, multiple times a week even. I can tell you a little bit about some of their programs. And about a third at all 3 of our locations of our participants are catechumens and inquirers. So 2/3 of the people coming are grew up Orthodox, and we're helping bridge that new experience of being on a new campus, in a new place, helping them find their community. But then a whole other third of the people coming to us they heard about it from their roommate, or they saw a video online, or they passed our table on campus, or whatever it is. The priest, I was recently speaking to the priest at A&M, and he said he was making a new catechumen almost every week for the last 20 weeks, and over half of them were college students. So there's a real need for us as the church to be present in the places where people are asking big questions, and to help them root themselves deeply in the life of the church and come into the church in a really healthy and rooted way. So our hope is that over the course of the next year, this community, along with our other invested stakeholders and alumni, one of whom lives in my house and has definitely already been tapped to do some of this work, is that you all help us prepare to bring someone here in the fall of 2026. And what that's really going to look like is that I'm looking for people who are interested in serving on an exploratory committee. And that exploratory committee will kind of serve 2 roles. One will be what I'm calling program development, really helping us get to know the life of the current OCF, the hopes of the current students and the future students, what might be possible because of the context that you're in, that I can only learn so much about from afar, as well as eventually help us in the hiring process, to help vet candidates, and then a fundraising committee as well. So part of this exploratory committee will, in Penn State's case, what that's most likely to look like is a lot of alumni outreach and parent outreach, parents of current and former students. So it'll really be helping me build out where are the possibilities for that. Our goal is to have about 2 years of what we would need to run this program either given or pledged before we start. And our intention there is that that gives someone coming in, gives them 2 years really to show people what this program can be like, to really root themselves into the life of this community, and then any fundraising that we're doing beyond that is really sustaining it beyond that person's tenure. And none of the fundraising that we do for this is done, it's not all on the parish, and it's not all on the Campus Missionary. Actually, a lot of it is National OCF doing the work, and just asking you all to come alongside us with the connections that you have and your own generosity. So that's what I'm looking for today. I feel like I could talk about campus missionaries and college students until I'm blue in the face. These guys have been listening to me do it for 2.5 days. And what I'd really love to do, mostly though, is true to a town hall fashion. I'd love to answer your questions. What are you hearing that's possibility for State College specifically, or OCF in general? What comes to mind that you're curious about that I could answer for you?
How much money are you hoping to?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I don't have a Penn State specific budget, but based on our other locations, it's typically about $120,000 a year, $120,000 to $150,000 a year, depending on location. I think here in State College, we'd likely be able to be on the lower end because some of the expenses here are just cost of living and things are a little lower than other places.
And that's including the salary for that, and is housing included?
We don't provide housing. We provide a salary so that this person wants this job because they can't live on it. So we do try to we give them a livable salary, and then we give them freedom to choose their own housing. This was something, though, that we talked a little bit about yesterday, I think somewhere, I think it would be helpful for an exploratory committee on the program side to help us know where makes sense, and are there any like great deals or parishioners that own a home that they would rent out, like those kinds of things we certainly will take advantage of, but it's not an expectation that we would provide housing or that you all would provide housing. But that budget does include their salary, all the costs associated with like hiring a person that are like really boring but do exist, like I don't know, HR costs and things, and then it provides a pretty significant $25,000 ministry budget for the students and the campus missionary to be using for the things that they're doing on campus, as well as a small budget for like training and continuing education for the campus missionary to make sure that they are equipped coming in, but also as they kind of learn what are the needs of this specific community. If they find they have a gap, we buy them books or we put them through courses. And one of our campus missionaries, two of our current campus missionaries have a Master's of Divinity. The third one had a Master's in Social Work and is going through St. Vladimir's catechist training this first year that he's on campus. So, and we're able to pay for that because we have a little bit of like a training and education budget for him.
Christina, how close in conjunction is this campus minister going to work with the Holy Trinity?
Yeah, very close. Like we don't want to exist in there's no Orthodox model for para-church. There's just not. The life in Christ is here. Our role is to, like I said, to really provide a bridge. So in all of our locations, it's expected that Father Ignatius would not stop being the spiritual advisor, for example, for the chapter. This would not stop being the home of where students are worshiping and being spiritually fed. Really what it does is extends Holy Trinity's ability to minister to the students, and it invites the campus into the life of the church. So my expectation would be like at least once a week they're like touching base, this person and Father Ignatius, that there's pretty open communication, and we've found a lot of times the campus missionary is spending a little more one-on-one time with students, and so sometimes like a student might be more comfortable initially telling the campus missionary something going on, and they're pretty well trained to have the discernment of like when to go, should talk to Father about that, or like this sounds like a confession issue, not a coffee chat issue, and vice versa. Sometimes, obviously not respecting the sacrament of confession, but in other ways, there's been times when our priest has said, to our campus missionary, have you talked to so-and-so in a while? Because they came to me today and they seemed really distraught, and then I got pulled in 50 different directions and I haven't followed up. So it really just then gives Father Ignatius and Holy Trinity, like I said, more ability to spend more time with students in this like really critical time.
So the kinds of students that you have coming, are they like students have an Orthodox background, or are they students with other backgrounds?
Yeah. So about 2/3. It's interesting that it's kind of panned out so far pretty even at all three locations. That about 2/3 will have been raised Orthodox or have already converted and are in the church, and about 1/3 will be inquirers, and some of those inquirers eventually becoming catechumens. So it's a combination of these things, and often what my missionaries tell me is that a lot of the inquirers come because of their friends. They notice something different in this way that these Orthodox kids are living, because they're really being challenged to live a really rich life in the church, and they start asking like it's their roommate or their lab partner or their friend from another org that they are then saying, I don't really know the answer to that question you're asking me, but I know somebody who will. Why don't you come with me to OCF, and we'll ask Alexandros or Jacob, one of my guys. Yeah.
Do you, as far as the Penn State OCF alumni,
yeah.
How robust is your email list or your connections? How much are they? Because anytime I encounter them in life, they're very excited about their experience has been here.
Yeah.
I'm curious about that.
Yeah, so I did just really start getting into like the weeds of trying to build out a list. So I came up with about 85 people. That's not amazing, but that was like me telling my husband to text all his old friends. Plus me like mining some college conference registration lists and things like that. But even from that, and then Father Alex Cadman has helped a little bit. One thing that I think the exploratory community can really help me with is that a lot of them, I still have their Penn State email lit for them, which means it's completely useless, and like half the emails I sent out bounced.
They kill it in 6 months.
Yeah, exactly. So I think, thankfully, I think between a couple of key people across a couple of key generations of alumni, I've already gotten a couple volunteers come forward and say like, oh yeah, send me the list and I'll try to get the ones I can. So I think a few more people like that on this committee who are willing to say like, yeah, I can kind of connect my people and make sure you have the right info, it's going to be pretty easy. Like you said, Penn State alumni love their school. Penn State Orthodox alumni typically loved their OCF experience. Many of them are in leadership roles in the church now too, like clergy and things like that. The director of communications at St. Vlad's is a Penn State alum. So I think we have like some good resources for us to be able to really build out that network over the course of this year. Yeah.
I would think even reaching out to various churches in Pittsburgh and Philly area, just the priests, because I always hear that, from a number of people, it's like, there's a student from this church on campus, and you never see him here. So,
right.
So I think just reaching out to.
Yes. Yeah. And I did actually send out about today to all of the Pennsylvania churches across all the jurisdictions. Now, my experience has said I probably also need someone actually in that church saying things, because I don't know, that general email, you guys probably can, whoever answers the general emails here can probably vouch for the fact that not everything that gets sent via that channel gets tons of attention, but yes, certainly, I think we talked a little bit yesterday about trying to get like a jurisdictionally diverse committee, so that we can do some of that work of making sure that parishes across the state who have alumni, who have current students, have parents of current students, are in the know.
Can you give us like a little bit more of a picture of what it looks like? You said the students are really like involved, and I see a lot of our OCF students who like come to services and things like that. Is that what you're talking about? Do they have something like separate? What is all
the program
that?
Like? Sure.
Yeah.
So what we try to do is we try to build out a rhythm in which students can count on, that they can kind of come in and out of. As you know, their schedules literally change every 6 months. They're doing something completely different. So what we've tried to do at each location is build a rhythm that they can count on no matter what else is going on for them. And that looks a little different in each location. It's easiest for me to talk about A&M because it's been going the longest now, so I'll tell you a little bit about their rhythm, and so you can have a sense. So at Texas A&M, their weekly rhythm is that they pray the hours Monday through Thursday on campus midday, and paraklesis, the service of paraklesis, on Fridays at midday, and that's on campus. On Monday evening, that sounds right, Monday evening they have a scripture study that's on campus. They're this year reading Genesis. Then on Thursday evening they have a spiritual discussion, so like a topical discussion, or sometimes like kind of like what we did this week. We baked prosper together and we talked about the seal and learned about what goes into baking prosper. So they do that on Thursday nights, and then they post on their Instagram and in their emails every week all the local services that are happening at both the communities. So they don't do things that would obviously overlap with the normal rhythm of services. So they don't do like Saturday evening activities. They go to Vespers or Sunday morning. And I think their local parish, one of the local parishes does Wednesday night. I think you guys do Wednesday night Vespers. So that's kind of in their rhythm too, is Wednesday night Vespers. Then on a more like monthly basis, the first Sunday of every month, they have a Sunday supper. So the Campus Missionary and his wife there make a big dinner, and they all come over to their house, and the students have just fellowship time. Also on a pretty much monthly basis, they have like a men's group that meets and a women's group. Those tend to be more social types of activities, but sometimes they'll mix it up and they'll do like a discussion on a topic that just the guys want to talk about or just the girls want to talk about. And they do, for both spiritual discussion and for like the men's and women's things, bring in other people from the community, as well as even clergy in the surrounding area or lay people from Houston's about an hour and a half away, so people will come up so that they're also getting exposed to something. They're getting exposed to Orthodoxy beyond just one parish, which for especially I think converts who come in to a particular parish can be really good if they won't end up here forever, for them to have some exposure to other communities. And then they have a couple of big events, like they do a fall retreat, and they have a fall formal around the Feast of St. Catherine, who's our patron saint. And they do, in the fall, they do a program called Parables. It's for freshman transition. So they have like a retreat for new freshmen for one day, and then they have like a set of workshops about time management, money management, and like church life that are led by community members, helping kind of freshmen adjust to college life, but doing it in the context of the church. And then in the spring, their big events are, they do a public lecture series. So they do a 3-part lecture series where they're bringing really well-known academic Orthodox speakers in on a topic that over the course of 3 lectures that are open. Then they advertise heavily on campus. So they try to draw not just the OCF to this lecture, but the local church community, as well as other students and professors. And those get like 75 to 100 in attendance at this point. And then it's Lent, so there are other big spring activities. They've gone to 2 different monasteries this spring. They try to do like that kind of thing. So it's a pretty, that sounds like a lot in a way, but what's nice about there's someone there who can maintain that for them. And 2, if one of the downsides to completely student-led alone ministry is if, the OCF, you guys already do more than a lot of chapters, but, a lot of chapters, they meet once a week. They meet on Thursday night. Well, guess what? If your lab this semester is Thursday night, you're just not part of the community for a whole semester, or maybe even a whole year, and that can be really tough on students. So this allows for a rhythm that nobody is expected to be at all of those things I just described, but there's always something. The church is always present in your life in a way that when you need it, and when you can be there, you're very easily, can be part of the community. And I guess I didn't even mention, they also do philanthropic ministries, both for the parish community and the campus community. This year, I was telling, I think the students here, one student officer opened a pocket pantry for, the way they do their food services for food insecure students at A&M is, instead of having one big pantry, they have little ones all over their huge campus. And the OCF led the way of all the campus ministries, got them all together and said we should have one in the chapel on campus. And so the OCF built it with some of their funds that they have, and they organized all the other ministries to participate in manning it and keeping it stocked. And now there is a food pantry on the north side of campus that wasn't there before because it's the OCF. And they recently held a parish community night. And the college students did the babysitting for the families who brought their young kids to family night so that the parents could be, they had I think a lecture for parents or whatever. Yeah, so we are creating this rhythm of ways that they can get engaged that's kind of a mix of on campus and off campus, but also when the church has an opportunity for them to be in intergenerational relationships or to serve in the community, God willing, you're going to be flooded with students and hands, and I'm sure you all will think of very creative ways to get them involved in serving, giving back, and participating in the things going on here.
Thank you. That was helpful.
Yeah. We were talking about the time that they roasted a lamb.
Oh yeah.
They slaughtered a lamb in your backyard?
No, actually it was, they had the lamb somewhere else, and I went to them. And they were like, we don't know how to do this. And I was like, okay, let me explain to you what has to be done. You slay it, I'll gun it. Because I was a farm girl. Yeah.
So, mean, so that year, for example, the OCF provided the Paschal dinner for the parish. I mean, they roasted a whole lamb. And anyway, so I think there could be some really fun and creative ways. And one thing we learned going from A&M to 3 campuses was the full rhythm doesn't make sense to replicate. There's no copying and pasting. You got to really know. I do think Penn State, unlike Atlanta or Phoenix, is a lot more like A&M, just because you are a very similar university, and also just the one church in town situation where things are going to be a little different than like Atlanta or Phoenix. There's like 20 churches, and so it's a different kind of way of navigating, being that bridge. So there may be more things that translate directly from what they did at A&M to here, but then there are going to be things that we might try on and say, okay, that doesn't fit us, right? Let's try it this way. Or, I know George is already thinking about some of this rhythm he might introduce next year, so there might be things that are already happening here that we really just want to encourage and build off of. Questions?
So from a parish community perspective, I assume there's some financial help that would be expected. But from a regular person, how would they engage? What could they do as a family or group of families? How would they engage to help the students?
To help the students? Well, I think that's where the program development side of this exploratory committee is really going to come in handy, because I don't know the full answer to that, because you all know your people and your community better. And so I'd really love for some people who might be particularly feel called, like maybe you don't know the answer yet either, but you feel like my family would do something if we figured it out together. So I'm really hoping the program development side of this exploratory committee is a combination of students and parishioners, and hopefully your faculty advisor. I met him earlier. I'm trying to remember who it was who told me they were the faculty advisor, who can really help us think through what that looks like. What would we be asking of families here in terms of their engagement with what's going on in OCF? What would be the opportunities that the students are hoping for, that are just ideas in their head that they've been oh, I really wish we could, but we haven't figured out a way. So that when we bring someone in who has the time to make all those things happen, they also have the support of the community that really rounds out that experience. Yeah. So yeah, sign yourself up with my QR code, I guess, is the short answer. Yes.
You said they're doing the hours basically at A&M.
Yeah.
Is that at the local church, or they do it at a spiritual center?
Yeah.
Or okay.
Yeah, there's a less nice version of the Pastoralist. Is that how you say that? Pastoralist Center at A&M, and they do their. This is one of their bringing the church to the campus and trying to be the church where they are parts of it. So obviously the liturgical life is all pretty much happening in the parish, but then they're trying to bring prayer to the campus. So they did that on campus. They didn't do it this year, but last year they did a blessing of the water on campus. You know how you do at the cross row and everything, but they did it in one of the palms. And they did that in Atlanta this year on Georgia Tech's campus, which is an extremely secular campus. They brought the priests and the icons, and there's a fountain on campus that they did a blessing of the water for Theophany right in the middle of campus. And the Campus Missionary there told me they're doing the procession on Georgia Tech's campus, and they see somebody with a staff badge on, beelining it towards them there, and Jacob was uh-oh, we're gonna get in trouble. And it turned out it was an Orthodox professor that he just hadn't met before, who came up and got up the blessing of the priest, and was I'm so glad you're doing this, and then went in the procession with them. So anyway, it's a blessing beyond just the students too. I mean, we're really trying to bless the whole campus, and that includes the staff and the faculty in the ways that we can include them.
I've got an online question here.
Great.
Is there a particular interest in having the OCF missionary be specifically a layperson?
Yes. Yeah, I can speak to that. Yes, there is. That's for a couple of reasons. I mean, I think the first is a little bit obvious in the sense that sometimes young people need a little bit of a bridge, even from the most friendly and outgoing and warm and welcoming clergy. They sometimes need a doorway person into being comfortable in that conversation. So that's part of it. And so right now, it's not required that they're young, but right now I have 3 young, late 20s lay people. The other thing is that we have a lot of, obviously, respect for the structure and order of the church, and I don't think it's fair to ask a clergyman to be answerable to OCF and not, like, before your bishop, after your bishop. It's a little, I think that puts the clergyman actually in a tough situation when they need to be answerable first to their bishop, and because we work across jurisdictions, we need to be like supportive of that and respect that, and also not put someone in a position where they don't really know where their I guess authority lines are. So it allows us to kind of here it's not as big of a deal because there's just the one church, but especially in places where we have lots of churches, it helps us be able to bridge to all those communities and work with all the clergy.
At what point would the minister start to get involved? If you have a committee now building things, at what point is the input from them expected? I'm assuming that they start in the fall of 2026, but before that to build out.
Yeah, so we would want to work like most things, a little heavier on the front end. So then post-Pascha, I'd say through the early fall is really when this committee is going to want to be the most active, because we want to set ourselves up, especially financially, to be able to say, okay, we can announce that we want to start a hiring process. We would put out a hiring process. The ideal is that by Christmas time, we're in a position where we could at least announce that we're hiring someone, especially if we're particularly interested in a seminary graduate. That's not a requirement. Like I said, we have ways to kind of build someone up if they're not. But that's really when they start thinking about what's happening after they graduate. And then we would want to hire someone, make an offer in the mid to late spring, and they would actually start June 1. So they would have the summer before they're on campus to, and if we are able to make an offer soon enough, we could even have them come do a visit here at that end of school year, kind of this time that I'm here now. If we already knew who the person was, we could have them come do a visit and already start kind of building some relationships. And then over the summer they would move here, they would start doing some of this kind of inheriting the work that the committee has done at that point of what's possible and getting to know the current student leaders, so that by that first week of classes, they're ready to start offering programming for the students.
So you said you want them to be relatively young, so they're about the same age as the students, a little bit older and whatnot. How long do they serve before they basically go on and do something else and someone else comes in?
Yeah. Well, I will say I don't actually think they have to be young. I think that's just what's happened thus far. Okay. We've had we've had promising candidates who weren't in that age range, who I think we ended up going in a different direction, but so that's not a requirement. I will say my hope, especially in a new location, is that they're willing to commit at least 5 years. My hope is that some of them will want to stay longer. Like I said, we're trying to, a lot of campus ministries assume you're hiring a brand new college graduate, you're paying them garbage, they're fundraising the money that they're all by themselves to pay their garbage salary, and then in a year and a half they burn out and they're done. And we really don't want that for you guys. That sounds miserable. So we are trying to, like I said, give them a real livable salary that if they are married and have kids, they can have a family, that they could say yes to staying for as long as they want to serve, as long as it makes sense and they feel called. And it's possible that we find in some places we even need a team that 216 potential students at A&M is already a lot for one person. So we're already starting to think okay, what's the point where you needed more than one person, and maybe then you have someone who's a little older and more experienced and someone who's younger, learning from them. Yeah. Great. Well, I'm really appreciative of you guys being here, like I said, and being curious. I see the core group right here, so I'm hoping someone from each of your households shows up in my exploratory form. It's on the back of the flyer. There's a QR code you can scan that says you're interested. I will tell you, it doesn't obligate you to anything at this point. All it's probably going to do is get you an email from me saying, hey, could you hop on Zoom with other people who put their name on this list? And then we'll decide from there if it makes sense in your life and your time to make a commitment to helping. But even if you don't want to serve on the committee and you are just like, but I could give you 20 names of alumni or parents of alumni or current students. I have a few cards. I didn't think to put my email address on the flyer, but I do have a few cards if you want to take that and you want to be able to just shoot me an email and say, I don't really think I can be on the committee, but I can give you this, and pass that on to me. That would be really helpful. Yeah, is that it?
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't sure if you had another online. All right, everyone, thank you so much, and have a great Sunday. Yeah, thank you.
I'll leave it up a little longer for the QR codes in case anyone needs a minute to scan.
Yes.
All the way down. All the way down. All the way down.
Tomorrow night, because it's state college, and so my options work today, like during church, for the homework, or tomorrow night. Hi, sweetness. How are you? Good. Hi, Genevieve. Can I get a high five? Yeah.
Oh, we got a late.
Question.
Well, somebody online wants to get the email since they're not here to get the
Wait.
Yeah. Somebody online wants the.
We have two gods over there, and we can pass this across, so it really is our own. Yeah.
I'm okay.
Wait, did I name her? Is that Abby? Yeah. So she can see. Oh, it's not here.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, there's gotta be a way.
Is it still on, Michael? Is it still on?
It's not working for.
You think I can log in?
Oh yeah, you can upload.
Yeah.